What's up, guys? All right, I'm Dr. Chris Park, family physician and addiction doctor. I'm not a theologian or philosopher, so consider yourself warned. All right, a little different video than my normal stuff, guys. I'm not talking about addiction today. I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about like morals, ethics, and the existence of God. So, today I wanted to just look at one way we can reason towards this belief in God, okay? This has nothing to do with faith or anything like that, okay? It's basically an approach by looking at morals and values. Now, values is not the right word, morals and ethics. So, I saw on like my Instagram feed the other day, this guy I follow, an atheist, and he had this, this like meme. There's a bunch of Christians, yelling and like pointing the bird and doing all this crazy stuff. And, and he was like, Christians are gonna Christian, just kind of a joke, which obviously that's a straw man argument. I mean, you could say that's basically any group that's ever existed ever. You could take any selection of, 10 people from any group and find abhorrent behavior. But it's interesting because he is using morals and pointedly this group's own morals against them, right? Saying that they're not living up to their own standards that they're setting. And he himself would say that he agrees with those standards, or at least most of them, right? So when you're talking to an atheist and they when we're talking about morals, they're like, I've got some friends who are good atheists and we'll discuss this. And so some of the arguments will be that morals are evolved. Like they're just kind of from our evolutionary process for whatever helped us to get to this stage. Or maybe they're culturally derived, or like from society, social norms, etc. And then they'll point out how these kind of things have changed over time, and how what was considered morally superior at one period of time is different than another. But it still implies that there is a way that should be lived. But they will say, we're approaching this from a materialistic view, and not some grander scheme, okay? And this is an interesting look at life, because that does mean, if you take that view, I don't care, listen, I know you guys, you atheists who are watching this, you're good people, I'm sure of it, right? And that's what you're gonna tell me, I'm good, I don't go around, murdering, stealing, or whatever. Good, I'm glad you don't, right? But if you take that worldview, you're still admitting that the morals are somewhat relative to maybe time, to place, to situation. And this is not the same relativity that I would say that there are some, like let's say you lie, and there's a good story, I have a video about this, Rahab in the Bible. She was a prostitute, and she lied to save these Hebrew men's lives, right? And it was credited to her towards righteousness. Now, lying is not in itself a good thing to do, but in this situation, it was the right thing to do, okay? So, because morality is about moving away from the good and not necessarily following a set pattern of rules. But I said morality is moving towards the good, okay? And so immorality would be moving away from the good, or doing wrong. So you have doing right, which is moving towards good, wrong, which is moving away from the good, okay? And which is not a set of rules, again. But most people who want to argue against religious belief, their thinking is that God is just some kind of man in the sky dictating a set list of rules, and that's not what, I know that's not the actual Christian belief system, but I'm sure you find some wackos out there who may believe that but anyway. My point is, if morals are relative, then you could you could take people outside of society, outside of culture, and maybe have them in a vacuum, so to speak. Do you understand what, like the principle of a vacuum in science, or in physics, when they're doing an experiment in a vacuum, so there's no outside influences to it, okay? And so the question would be, do morals and ethics exist inside a vacuum? And we could take like a multimillionaire, and let's say they buy their own island, and let's say they fly in other millionaires into that island so that they can do all kinds of hideous things without consequences. And you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Jeffrey Epstein, right? Is that immoral? Now, here's the other question. If you never knew about it, if you never found out, there was no one to judge, no lawyers to face, nothing like that, would it still be immoral? And I hope you come to the conclusion that yes, it would. Because at some point, we have to decide that there are things we're not going to bend on, right? That things aren't relative. And I think if you're being intellectually honest, you know that this type of behavior is immoral. So now we have this morality. If you agree with that morality is not relative, because if you think morality is relative, or that it's just culturally derived, then you're basically saying there's no difference in actions. So there's no difference in me taking this water bottle and taking off the top, and someone kidnapping a child and flying her out to some island, for these millionaires to do whatever. Okay? That there's no actual difference in the grand scheme of things. Okay? What I say is there is a huge, huge difference. And that morality does exist. And that morality is not a material thing. And what do I mean by material? I mean, it's not made of matter. Okay? It's immaterial. It is something unto itself. Okay? So that, everything else seems to be made of matter, right? We got atoms, cells, chemistry, all that, right? But morality is separate from that. Now, and that, it could be its own thing, right? But if morality is its own thing, meaning there is no God that set forth morality, okay? Then morality is yet something that needs to be followed or ought to be followed. Then morality is it almost is its own God. Now stay with me here, okay? Several points, and we're going to try to tie them in. So, if morality is this thing itself and that it ought to be followed, there's something else we need to see about it. And we need to see that it's personal. Personal. Because it deals with persons, and it deals with our interactions with things, with other people, and with the world we live in. It's personal. This is important. Because a tree is a tree. A tree is not, depending on how it grows, it is not immoral or moral. It is not following right or wrong. I mean, it may not turn, you may plant a flower and it may not turn out the way you wanted, but that's probably more along the lines because it wasn't watered correctly, it wasn't, it had the right amount of sunlight, right? But it's not because the flower itself didn't follow some type of pattern of right or wrong. Okay, you with me? But people, and we know they can go down different roads in life based on how they're raised and how they're born and what their genetics are, but also their decisions they make. People still choose whether to go towards what we call the right or towards what we call the wrong. There's still a choice. It's still a personal decision. And these actions are somewhat determined by our minds. Now, I want to talk about something else that's immaterial, and that's logic. Now, the laws of logic are the foundation for the laws of science. So anything we know about science, anything we know about evolution, biology, chemistry, any of this stuff that that atheists want to believe in, they're using the laws of logic. Now, the laws of logic themselves are immaterial. And if we think about it, now, what if like a solar flare, hit, it takes out the earth, we're gone, no more humans. Would the laws of logic still apply? There's no mind, there's none of us to think about things, to think through things, to figure things out. Do the laws of logic still apply? The answer is yes, because the laws of science, if the universe is still going, right, then we still have these laws of science in place. There's still mathematics, even if there's no mind to think of them. This is where it gets interesting, though. Because I would say there would still be a mind. Because these immaterial things do require a mind. And so if that mind is not us, that mind is something outside of us. An immaterial mind. And this mind is what I call God. The creator. God in its essence. This God is someone unknowable and mysterious, but still personal. Because it's a personal mind that must dictate morality. And so when we have that personal mind of God, we see how everything else fits into place. And so with our own logic and reason, we can come to a reasonable position that God exists. Even if we can't measure or do any scientific calculations on this God. Now, there's more to God than just this essence, but that's not the point of this video, okay? Because God, there's just more to it. But anyway, that's all I really wanted to approach in this video, was how we can use morality and logic to see that God exists and that God is necessary for morality and for existence. All right, guys, that's my video. Let me know what you think. Maybe this was helpful. Maybe it was just a bunch of rambling. Maybe no one will ever watch it because no one really cares about this stuff anymore. But I care, and I know some other people do too. So, all right, guys, have a good day.